Most people chase Rizq their entire lives, working harder, searching further, worrying endlessly, yet it often feels just out of reach. What if I told you that Rizq has already been written for you, flowing toward you from unseen sources, and the only thing standing in the way is your heart? Ibn Arabi and the Sufi masters teach that the secret to unlocking divine provision is not just effort or strategy, it is a spiritual alignment, a state of inner readiness, and a connection to the words of Allah that opens doors most people never even notice. In this video, I will reveal the 7 unmistakable signs that Allah is opening your rizq, signs that transform the ordinary into abundance and the unseen into reality. If your heart is ready, your life is about to change in ways you cannot yet imagine. Your heart feels less attached to the world. One of the most powerful signs that the doors of rizq are quietly opening is a subtle shift inside your heart. You start to notice that the world no longer controls your emotions the way it used to. You still work, you still plan, you still care about your responsibilities, but the desperation disappears. The noise of comparison, pressure, and impatience begins to fade. You stop measuring your worth by what you have, and you start measuring it by who you are becoming. Sufi masters teach that the moment a person loosens their grip on the dunya loosens its grip on them too. This detachment is not about abandoning life. It is about releasing fear. It is the calm knowing that your rizq is written, your opportunities are guided, and your path is held by Allah. When the heart becomes lighter, it becomes easier for blessings to reach it, because the space once filled with anxiety is now filled with trust. This inner freedom is not accidental. It is the first spiritual opening, the first door, the first quiet sign that Allah is preparing you for a new level of provision. When the world stops ruling your heart, the world begins to serve your journey. Opportunities appear without effort. Another clear sign that your rizq is beginning to open is when opportunities start emerging from directions you never expected. You may notice that things you used to struggle for begin to come with surprising ease. A person reaches out with an offer, a message arrives at the right moment, a problem resolves itself, or a path becomes clear without you forcing anything. In Sufi teachings, this is known as a fath, a divine opening that cannot be planned or manufactured by human effort alone. It is not luck, and it is not coincidence. It is a signal that your inner state has aligned with what Allah has already written for you. Ibn Arabi teaches that when a person's heart becomes receptive, the world responds to that inner readiness. What once felt blocked now begins to flow. Doors you thought were closed reveal themselves as stepping stones. This ease does not mean you stop working. It means your work becomes supported by something greater than your strength. These effortless opportunities are reminders that rizq is not only earned by action, but delivered by divine timing. The path of abundance becomes smoother the moment your heart shifts from struggle to surrender. You feel a calm trust in Allah. A profound sign that rizq is opening for you is the appearance of a quiet, steady trust in Allah that wasn't there before. This trust is not loud or emotional. It settles into your heart like a soft certainty. You stop panicking about the future, and instead you begin to feel that everything will unfold as it is meant to. Ibn Arabi teaches that certainty itself is a form of rizq, because it frees the heart from the chains of fear and gives it space to receive divine generosity. When this trust takes root, your mind becomes clearer, your decisions become wiser, and your efforts become more focused. You no longer ask, "How will I survive?" but instead, "How can I grow?" This inner shift transforms your relationship with challenges as well. Instead of seeing them as threats, you begin to view them as part of a divine script written for your elevation. You realize that the one who provided for you yesterday will provide for you tomorrow. This calm trust does not remove responsibility, but it removes the heaviness of worry. It is a spiritual signpost, showing that Allah is opening your rizq, not just through worldly means, but through a heart strengthened by faith and aligned with His promise. Your dua becomes softer, but more frequent. One of the deepest signs that Allah is opening your rizq is a transformation in the way you make dua. It is not that you stop asking for what you need. Rather, the tone of your dua changes. Instead of coming from a place of fear, desperation, or pressure, your dua begins to emerge from a gentler, more trusting place within you. You find yourself turning to Allah more often, not because you are panicking, but because your heart is naturally drawn toward Him. This shift is subtle yet powerful. Instead of begging with anxiety, you start asking with love, humility, and certainty. In Sufi teachings, especially within the insights of Ibn Arabi, this softening of dua is considered a sign that your inner world has begun to harmonize with the divine will. Your heart no longer fights the decree of Allah, it begins to flow with it. When Allah opens the door of sincere dua, it means He is preparing to open the doors of provision as well. The spiritual state you enter during dua becomes richer, deeper, and more peaceful. You do not rush through your words. You do not repeat phrases mechanically. You begin to speak to Allah as if you truly feel seen, heard, and understood. And this change, this softness, is not accidental. It is a sign that Allah is already turning toward you, already preparing something for you, already shaping unseen realities in your favor. Sufis say that when dua becomes gentle, destiny becomes gentle too. You may also notice that your dua begins to expand. You no longer ask only for material things, even though material needs are completely valid. You begin asking for guidance, clarity, wisdom, contentment, and the strength to handle what is written for you. This is a sign that your soul is awakening. The heart that asks for wisdom is the heart that Allah fills with both spiritual and worldly risk. As Ibn Arabi reminds us, what comes through the heart is always a reflection of what is opening for the person. Another remarkable sign is consistency. You find yourself making dua not only in moments of difficulty, but during calm, ordinary moments of your day. Your heart feels a gentle pull toward Allah, at times when you used to feel distracted. This is not something you force. It arrives as naturally as breathing. A person in this state begins to live with their heart turned upward even while their body walks in the world. And this is one of the strongest indicators that your rizq, opportunities, and blessings are on their way. This softness in dua also brings a change in your emotional experience. Even when you are unsure about your future, the act of asking Allah brings you comfort rather than fear. The worries that once weighed heavily on your mind now feel lighter. You begin to feel that Allah is close, that He knows your needs before you speak them, and that He is taking care of matters you cannot see. This change in emotional tone is not small. It is a sign of a heart that is being spiritually unlocked. Sufi masters often say that the acceptance of dua begins at the moment your heart softens, not at the moment the result appears. When your dua becomes gentle and frequent, you have already stepped into a state of barakah. Your heart begins to trust the timing of Allah instead of controlling it. You start to value the connection with Allah more than the speed of the response. And this shift alone pulls the doors of rizq closer to you. In this softened state of dua, your relationship with Allah becomes more personal, more intimate, and more sincere. You begin to realize that your provision was never limited by your effort alone. It was always tied to the condition of your heart. And now, as your heart opens, your rizq opens with it. Barakah appears in small things. One of the most profound and often overlooked signs that Allah is opening your rizq is the appearance of barakah, divine blessing, in even the smallest aspects of your life. This is not about sudden wealth or grandiose success. It is about the subtle ways in which Allah begins to multiply what you already have, turning ordinary things into extraordinary sources of provision and contentment. Imagine a small amount of money lasting longer than it should. A simple meal, satisfying hunger and nourishing the body in ways you cannot quantify, or a task that once consumed hours of your energy now completed effortlessly, yielding far greater results. This is the essence of barakah. It is a blessing that cannot be measured by conventional standards, but its effects are undeniable. Ibn Arabi and the Sufi masters emphasize that the heart attuned to the divine begins to recognize these signs, and in doing so, becomes a magnet for further abundance. Barakah manifests not only materially, but also in your time, energy, and relationships. You may notice that a single moment of effort now produces outcomes far beyond what logic would suggest. Tasks that once seemed insurmountable become manageable. Challenges that used to drain your energy now seem to carry hidden opportunities. People appear at the right moment to offer support or guidance. Doors open that were previously closed, and solutions emerge seemingly from nowhere. This is not luck. It is the natural flow of provision when the heart is aligned with Allah's decree. The Sufis often say that Barakah is like water flowing into a vessel. When the vessel is pure, clean, and open, the water fills it completely. When the vessel is cluttered, closed, or distracted, even abundant water cannot enter fully. Similarly, when your heart is open, humble, and spiritually awake, Allah's provision fills every corner of your life, in ways that may be subtle, but are transformative. Another remarkable feature of Barakah is that it often comes disguised as simplicity. You might notice that small, consistent efforts yield larger results than extraordinary bursts of activity. A simple act of kindness creates ripples you could never have anticipated. A modest investment of time in knowledge or prayer brings insights that dramatically shift your trajectory. Even your daily routines, once mundane and repetitive, begin to carry weight and purpose beyond what you thought possible. Sufi masters explain that Barakah is not about adding more to your life superficially. It is about infusing what already exists with divine presence, transforming quantity into quality, scarcity into sufficiency, and ordinary moments into extraordinary blessings. Barakah also begins to influence your perception of wealth and success. When you are truly experiencing Barakah, you start to notice that your needs are met in ways that do not always involve accumulation. Provision becomes less about how much you have, and more about how effectively what you have sustains you. You feel contentment even when circumstances are not ideal because you begin to see that Allah's blessings are sufficient and perfectly timed. Ibn Arabi teaches that the seeker who understands Barakah does not measure life by worldly standards of gain, but by the spiritual and practical fullness that divine blessing brings. In this way, your life transforms. What once seemed insufficient is now enough, and what once seemed ordinary is now abundant. Perhaps the most compelling aspect of Barakah is how it quietly spreads into every area of your life. Relationships become smoother and more meaningful. Opportunities that seemed blocked begin to open naturally. Health, energy, and focus seem to multiply without extra effort. Even moments of rest become restorative beyond expectation. The Sufis call this the inner multiplication of provision. When Allah blesses the heart, the effects ripple outward, touching every aspect of existence. You may even begin to notice that when you share what you have, it grows rather than diminishes, because Barakah flows in accordance with generosity and sincerity. This is a divine law, observed consistently by those whose hearts are tuned to the sacred rhythm of Allah's decree. In essence, Barakah in small things is a sign that Allah is opening the doors of Rizq in a way that is sustainable, profound, and spiritually nourishing. It signals that your inner state is aligned with divine will, that your heart is receptive, and that your life is entering a phase where the unseen flows of provision are actively at work. Ibn Arabi emphasizes that recognizing and nurturing this Barakah is as important as the Barakah itself. Gratitude, mindfulness, and sincere effort amplify its effects. Every moment, every action, every resource you touch becomes a channel for greater blessing. When you begin to perceive and embrace these subtle forms of divine multiplication, you step fully into the spiritual reality of Rizq, one that is not measured merely by worldly accumulation, but by the depth, richness, and transformative power of Allah's mercy flowing through your life. Barakah is the quiet confirmation that your spiritual state is bearing fruit, that your alignment with the divine is recognized, and that your journey toward abundance is guided, purposeful, and unfolding exactly as it should. When Barakah appears in small things, it is a gentle but unmistakable signal that the universe is responding to your heart's awakening, and that the doors of Rizq are now open in ways you may not yet fully see, but will feel, experience, and ultimately live. You start seeing problems as doors. A profound sign that the doors of Rizq are opening in your life is the transformation in how you perceive challenges and difficulties. Before the heart is spiritually attuned, obstacles feel heavy, unfair, or overwhelming. Every setback seems like a barrier, every failure like a punishment, and every delay like a denial. Yet, as your inner state begins to align with divine wisdom, a subtle but powerful shift occurs. Problems are no longer seen as roadblocks, but as opportunities, as hidden doors leading to growth, expansion, and provision. This is one of the most subtle yet transformative markers of spiritual awakening described by Ibn Arabi and other Sufi masters. They teach that the way a seeker responds to difficulties is a mirror of their readiness to receive divine abundance. The heart that can perceive blessings in disguise opens itself to receiving not only material provision but also spiritual richness that no wealth can buy. When Allah begins to open the doors of Rizq, you start to notice that problems are rarely random. Every difficulty carries a hidden message or a hidden benefit meant to redirect you toward growth, wisdom, or a new opportunity. A financial delay may teach patience or creative resourcefulness. A relationship challenge may reveal the value of communication, empathy, or letting go. A health struggle may awaken gratitude for the body's resilience or encourage a more mindful lifestyle. The Sufis call this process tahqiq, the realization that every event, whether perceived as positive or negative, contains the seeds of divine instruction and abundance. This perspective transforms the very energy of your life. What once drained you now begins to energize you. What once discouraged you now guides you. In this sense, problems are no longer obstacles, they are portals to unseen blessings. The shift in perception is not instant or forced. It grows quietly as the heart softens and trust in Allah deepens. Ibn Arabi emphasizes that the seeker who can perceive the hidden doors within problems demonstrates a maturity of soul that invites divine favor. When you stop resisting difficulties and start observing the lessons within them, the universe begins to respond in kind. Opportunities that once seemed inaccessible now appear naturally, as if the barriers themselves have been transformed into pathways. This is the spiritual law of correspondence. The inner state of the heart manifests in the outer experience of life. A heart that is flexible, patient, and aligned with divine wisdom begins to experience the world differently, and the world, in turn, begins to reflect that alignment through the opening of doors that lead to provision. One of the most remarkable aspects of this sign is the inner peace it brings. Previously, you may have reacted to problems with stress, anxiety, or frustration. Now, even in moments of difficulty, a quiet certainty emerges, a knowing that everything has a purpose and that your path is guided. This does not mean that you ignore challenges or avoid responsibility. On the contrary, it means that you engage with problems consciously and intelligently, seeking solutions while trusting that the outcome is already part of Allah's divine plan. Sufi masters describe this as the state of tawakkul, reliance on Allah, where human effort and divine decree work together in perfect harmony. In this state, your actions are more effective, your decisions more grounded, and your results more aligned with both your needs and your destiny. Another key element is the recognition that every challenge contains a lesson tailored specifically for your growth. While others may experience the same difficulty and feel burdened, your heart begins to see its potential. You start asking not only, "Why is this happening to me?" but, "What is this teaching me?" This subtle reorientation opens your perception to a higher reality. That provision and opportunity are often hidden behind circumstances that initially appear as hardship. Ibn Arabi teaches that the enlightened heart can read the signs within life's tests, perceiving doors where others see walls. Each problem becomes an invitation to wisdom, a stepping stone toward resilience, and a channel through which Allah's provision can flow. This shift also transforms your relationships, actions, and decisions. When you start seeing problems as doors, you become proactive rather than reactive. You no longer waste energy on frustration or despair. Instead, you channel your energy into understanding, adapting, and moving forward with insight. This approach multiplies opportunities, as people are naturally drawn to those who handle challenges with clarity, composure, and wisdom. The world begins to unfold in ways that feel effortless, because your inner state aligned with divine wisdom magnetizes solutions and blessings. Problems, once feared, now guide you to the right connections, resources, and moments that expand your provision. Finally, the beauty of this sign lies in its subtle, yet cumulative power. At first, you may notice one problem turning into an unexpected solution, one obstacle revealing a hidden opportunity. Gradually, as this perception deepens, your entire life begins to shift. You encounter fewer dead ends, more pathways appear where none were visible, and blessings multiply in both seen and unseen ways. Barakah flows through your life naturally, quietly, and continuously because your heart has learned to perceive the divine rhythm in every situation. Ibn Arabi emphasizes that this is a critical stage in the spiritual unlocking of Rizq. The heart that can see doors within problems has aligned itself with the hidden channels through which divine provision flows, and the universe begins to respond accordingly. In essence, seeing problems as doors is not merely a perspective, it is a spiritual key. It signals that your heart is awakening to the subtle laws of provision, that divine timing is at work, and that every event in your life, no matter how challenging, contains the potential to guide you toward abundance. When this sign becomes evident, you are no longer living in fear of obstacles. Instead, you move forward with courage, clarity, and faith, knowing that each problem is a doorway leading you closer to your destined Rizq. It is the mark of a heart aligned with the divine, receptive to hidden blessings, and prepared to receive the richness Allah has prepared in ways you could not have imagined. Your heart feels pulled toward Allah's words. The final, and perhaps most profound sign that the doors of Rizq are opening is the subtle, yet unmistakable, pull of your heart toward the words of Allah. This attraction is not superficial or intellectual. It is a deep, magnetic longing that moves you to reflect, recite, and immerse yourself in the Quran with a presence you have never felt before. Where once reading or hearing the Quran may have been routine or mechanical, it now carries a sweetness, a weight, and a light that fills your inner world. Ibn Arabi emphasizes that the spiritual heart has its own senses, separate from the physical, and when these senses awaken, they recognize divine rhythms in ways the mind alone cannot comprehend. When your heart is drawn naturally to particular surahs, especially those that speak of provision, gratitude, and divine decree, it is a sign that your soul is aligning with the channels through which Allah's abundance flows. This pull is not about repetition or habit. It is a longing of the heart that cannot be ignored, a quiet call that moves you toward presence, reflection, and submission. This sign often begins subtly. You may notice that certain verses or surahs suddenly resonate with your life in a way they never did before. Their meanings touch your heart, awaken understanding, and bring clarity to situations you previously felt confused or overwhelmed by. Sufi masters teach that the Quran is a living guide, and when the heart is ready, the words themselves become mirrors reflecting your spiritual state and your path. This is why Ibn Arabi and other Sufi teachers emphasize the importance of attentive and mindful recitation. It is not merely the act of speaking or hearing the words, but the inner attention, the reflection, and the receptivity of the heart that activates the spiritual doors of Rizq. As your connection deepens, you begin to experience a transformation in perception. What once seemed ordinary or distant now feels immediate, personal, and alive. The Quran becomes not just guidance but a key unlocking inner abundance, a source of insight, and a medium through which unseen opportunities manifest. A remarkable aspect of this pull toward Allah's words is the simultaneous increase in spiritual and worldly alignment. Ibn Arabi teaches that the outer world mirrors the inner state of the heart. As your heart grows closer to divine wisdom through reflection on the Quran, the pathways of Rizq and provision begin to open naturally. You start noticing guidance in subtle moments, timely meetings, sudden clarity in decisions, assistance from unexpected places, and the appearance of solutions that were previously hidden. This is because the heart's attunement to divine words awakens the subtle channels of provision that exist beyond human perception. It is as if the universe itself begins to recognize a readiness within you, and the unseen forces that guide blessings and opportunities are drawn toward your aligned heart. Another profound effect of this sign is the increase in spiritual discernment. When your heart is genuinely attracted to the Quran, you begin to see life through a lens of meaning, wisdom, and intention, rather than mere circumstance. You notice the interconnectedness of events, the lessons embedded within challenges, and the guidance hidden in every encounter. This heightened awareness naturally attracts abundance, because the heart that perceives correctly acts in ways that harmonize with divine timing. Opportunities are recognized, decisions are made wisely, and efforts are applied in directions that produce maximum benefit. In Sufi understanding, this discernment is a form of Rizq itself, because it prevents wasted energy, misguided effort, and unnecessary struggle, allowing divine provision to flow unobstructed. The pull toward Allah's words also fosters patience, humility, and gratitude. As the heart lingers on verses of promise, sustenance, and mercy, it internalizes the understanding that provision is not merely the result of human endeavor, but the unfolding of divine decree. The heart begins to let go of anxiety, fear, and desperation, recognizing that every need has been anticipated by Allah. Ibn Arabi emphasizes that a heart in this state does not simply seek what it wants, it seeks what Allah wills, and in doing so, it opens itself to a level of abundance that cannot be achieved through effort alone. Gratitude becomes the natural response, not because you have received everything you desire immediately, but because you perceive that what is coming is perfectly timed, perfectly measured, and perfectly aligned with your growth and destiny. Furthermore, this sign transforms your relationship with life itself. Every experience, every encounter, every challenge begins to feel imbued with meaning. The Quran becomes a map not only of morality or guidance, but of timing, provision, and spiritual unfolding. When your heart feels naturally drawn to these words, you begin to act in ways that are aligned with divine rhythm, speaking gently, helping others sincerely, making decisions with mindfulness, and dedicating efforts with clarity and intention. In this way, the pull toward Allah's words is both a cause and an effect of Rizq. It draws provision toward you, and it simultaneously prepares you to receive it wisely, effectively, and gratefully. Ultimately, the heart's attraction to divine words is the culmination of spiritual alignment. It is the final sign that your inner state is harmonized with the flow of divine abundance, that your perception of life is tuned to recognize opportunities, and that the doors of Rizq are fully opening, not just in material terms, but in wisdom, insight, and inner richness. Ibn Arabi teaches that when the soul is receptive to divine speech, the entire life becomes a reflection of divine grace. Provision flows as naturally as light fills a room. Doors that were once closed swing open without effort, and the seeker moves through life with a certainty and calm that transcends ordinary understanding. This is the mark of a heart fully awakened, a life aligned with divine decree, and the ultimate manifestation of Rizq, provision that is visible and unseen, material and spiritual, immediate and everlasting. In this awakened state, recitation is no longer merely ritual, it is a conversation between the heart and the divine. Each verse resonates, each word vibrates with meaning, and each reflection opens new channels of understanding and blessing. The pull toward Allah's words is a spiritual magnet, drawing not only knowledge and insight, but opportunities, support, guidance, and provision from sources both visible and hidden. This is the final key in the journey of opening Rizq. A heart attuned to the divine, receiving in abundance, and living in alignment with the infinite wisdom and generosity of Allah. The seeker who experiences this pull is no longer separate from the flow of divine provision. They are immersed in it, guided by it, and transformed by it in every dimension of life. These 7 signs are not mere coincidences. They are the subtle whispers of Allah, guiding your heart, opening the doors of rizq, and preparing you for blessings you cannot yet see. Ibn Arabi teaches that provision is not just what you earn, but what flows to the heart that is ready to receive it. If you have recognized even one of these signs in your life, know that you are on the path to abundance, guided by divine wisdom. Embrace the changes in your heart, remain patient, reflect on Allah's words, and let your trust deepen. For the doors of rizq are now opening in ways that go beyond effort, beyond struggle, and beyond imagination. Your life is about to transform. Step into it with faith, gratitude, and awareness.